lot of times money matters have to do with like, hey, do you have the right interest rates or loan structures, or are you saving on tax? But the reality is the most important thing to having a life that you love and to be able to live wealthy along the way and really get clear about what you want is this concept of soul purpose, which is your vision, it's your values, it's ultimately, your passion and your abilities. And when we roll that all into the context of who you are, you're unique beyond anyone else out there, or different than anyone else out there, because you might have similarities, but that combination exists nowhere else on the earth, even though there's like 7 billion people out there.
Let's put more money in your pocket, increase your financial IQ, and create more peace of mind, clarity, and certainty in your life. Welcome to Money Matters, a weekly segment of the Wealth Labs podcast where we tackle the money topics that matter.
Hey everyone, Garrett Gunderson here, New York Times bestseller, the host of the Wealth Labs podcast, and I've got one of my friends that, it's amazing we became friends because it didn't really start that way. We were in a documentary together, and I gave her my book, and she quickly ignored it and set it aside. But despite that, with the fragile ego of an author, she ended up picking it up later, and we ended up doing a lot of work together. And as you might not be surprised, is that she owned a yoga studio because her real expertise is soul purpose, but not in just this way that is so surface, not in this way that is just completely airy-fairy. We're not going to just levitate all of a sudden because we've had some epiphany or meditate our way to wealth. The reality is she is masterful at finding where people have obstacles, where they have limiting beliefs, where there's certain myths, where they haven't fully embraced who they are and the level of power that they have. And she's just got this really connected, deep way of really helping people see through the things that were invisible before she kind of illuminates them and points them out. So, Demi, I look forward to the conversation that we have today and really, having the world understand this gift that you've been given that helped them uncover their gifts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's funny. As I think back, Garrett, when I was first introduced to Garrett, I was in the manifesting money, and I was pretty successful at it. First year I did it, I manifested almost $500,000 in 1 year. And granted, I had to catch on fire at a restaurant to get most of that money. But
right, you were on a date, right?
Yes, in a restaurant.
And you have a dress on, and there's candles everywhere.
There's candles by a hearth. My skirt brushes against it, and we're talking about, before even that, we're talking about how hot it is because it was March in Utah, and I was saying that's literally in that conversation. I said, I would so much rather be hot than cold any day. I said, it can't get hot enough for me, which I would soon find out it should.
Which then you were lit on fire.
Yeah, right? So, but I figured I had this manifesting money thing figured out, and that's when you handed me your book, and I looked at it and I thought, that's way too much hard work. I'll put that on the shelf, and went about continuing trying to manifest, and it didn't work out so well, right? And so that led me on a journey, and I had a yoga studio, and I had a dad that taught me that, do what you love and do it well and get people to pay you to do it, and you'll be successful. And I was like, that's what I did. And I was passionate about yoga. I opened up this yoga studio. I put all of my money into it, all of my passion into it. My full soul purpose is just so into that. And I was going more and more and more into the red. Why wasn't this working out? This is my sole purpose, right? And it was about that time that I was actually in the yoga studio when another one of my brother-in-laws, who was working here at Wealth Factory at the time, had one of the old manuals. It used to be Freedom Fast Track, and it was in the yoga studio. He'd come by for something, and I opened it up, and I was reading the stuff on soul purpose. And I was like, what is this? Who is this? Who wrote this? It sounds like me. I got to meet him, and that's when he shared more about what you were up to, and it was, I think, divine intervention to get involved with you guys at the time, because back then I didn't know what I didn't know.
Right.
And it's one of the paradoxes I talk about with soul purpose. A lot of people think, and we talk even here at Wealth Factory that, soul purpose is one of the key ingredients we use towards economic independence. And it is, but the other option that soul purpose can take you down is bankruptcy and destruction.
Right, there's a key distinction there. And I remember in December of 2006, so I'm in Phoenix, and I'm writing out this Freedom Fast Track program, right? Mm-hmm. That program still exists as a flagship program with Wealth Factory, and it's evolved. But I remember writing it, and when I got to the second stage, the word soul purpose came up, and I'm like, I'm writing a financial program right now, and the words, and I was like kind of nervous and scared. I'm like, what the hell? Like, I'm going to put the word sole purpose. People are going to they're going to discount this. They're going to think, what does this have to do with money? And the reality is it has so much to do with money.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, first off, feel worthy of the money, you'll find a way to destroy it. Second, if you're in scarcity, you'll find a way to push it away. And third, if you don't really understand your sole purpose, you won't be fully fulfilled, even though the money could be there. So it becomes super instrumental. But you're right. There's a lot of people that think, I'm just going to do what I love and the money will follow. But the reality is it might flee because you don't understand certain principles. You don't have an understanding of how money really works, what it is, and get some of these things, in order. So I do think that's fascinating because I think it's been over promoted. Do what you love and the money will follow. Well, first off, a hobby isn't the same thing as sole purpose.
Yeah.
The activities you do isn't even the same thing as your sole purpose. It might be a component of it. So when you look at it from a more expansive standpoint, how do you see it?
Yeah. I mean, and you can reach economic independence without sole purpose. You can, and some people do that. And
I hate real estate, but I could get there with real estate and then just be like, okay, I'm dealing with loans, I'm dealing with tenants, I'm dealing with property managers, and I say this from personal experience. Now, other people might love real estate, and that's totally cool because we all have our own investor DNA. But the type of investor we are and how we relate to the investments is key. It's not about which investment you choose. It's really more about who you are and how you align with those investments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean you can. So you get success, but you feel lonely and empty still inside. That's not really what we're about here at Wealth Factory. It's living the life that you love. Yeah, you want to have economic independence so you can have more freedom and you can make a bigger impact and enjoy life to the max, right? And you want to be doing something that you love. And then the two distinctions that I talk about is the difference between which path sole purpose will take you down, either economic independence or bankruptcy and destruction. And I've done both, only recommend one. But the two distinctions are clarity and alignment. Right. First, clarity on what your sole purpose is.
And what is sole purpose to you? How do you discover that?
Yeah. So, when I talk about sole purpose is, the best way to describe it is it's not an intellectual process, first of all. It's a metaphysical compass.
Right. It's not an efforting process that if you just work hard enough, you discover.
Yes. And we're always connected to it. I look at it it's like this internal compass navigating you towards the life that you love, the legacy that you.
Really who you are at the core.
It's absolutely who you really are.
And what you do is either aligned with that or not aligned with that.
Yeah. I mean, every baby that's born into the world is born who they really are and brilliant and magnificent. And then what happens is they're in their full soul purpose, being who they are and doing what they love. And then somebody says something to them. Because they stand out. You stand out in your soul purpose. You're unique.
Something's wrong. Did I do?
They're loud. They're just show-offs. And then what we start to do, we have this survival mechanism.
We suppress that. Yeah.
So we have to fit in, because it's I call it monkey mind.
Yeah, what will people think?
Yeah, we have to, and really our ancestors that didn't fit in, they died, they got kicked out. So we have this very primitive part of our brain that in order to survive, it wants us to fit in. And so we adapt at a very young age. And so we start to dim our soul purpose, dim our light.
Right, especially when we think about that bond with family. A lot of times it's well, I don't want to be different, or will I be accepted?
Yeah.
Or, the reality is most of the time you will.
Yeah.
But, and you might even pave a new path, but it is a kind of a scary process, I think.
I think that's the biggest thing, Garrett, that keeps people from living their soul purpose to the fullest is a fear of what other people think. And that fear of what other people think makes us try to fit in.
Right.
And soul purpose wants you to stand out, because to make an impact that's really going to matter in the world, you can't fit in. You got to stand out and be your whole uniqueness. And
this was a huge insight for me is, all right, so worrying about what other people think. If we look at the world, there's really these two determinant paradigms, right? There's the scarcity paradigm or the abundance paradigm. I might call it the consumer condition, where people look to take more than they give, or they live in an entitlement or fear, doubt, and worry. And then in abundance, it's more about innovation, ingenuity, resourcefulness, and so what happens is, if we're taking the opinion, or we're worried about someone's opinion that's in scarcity, they can't see the world as it is or us as who we are, and so it's their own fears that they're projecting, and all of a sudden we diminish who we are based upon false information. Yeah. So I'm if you're really trying to make sure everyone's happy, well, unhappy people are going to be unhappy with anything that you do, right? And we've seen this with social media, with the Twitter trolls or whoever it might be. It's hey, I kind of felt like I just adopted a belief that was just helpful, whether it's true or not. It was like, hey, if someone's not upset, then I'm just not doing enough. Like if someone doesn't disagree, then I'm not putting myself out there enough. Versus being like, ooh, like, what does this say about me? We just got to learn to love ourselves, accept ourselves, embrace our soul purpose, and know there's going to be some things along the way.
Absolutely. And so, but that is the biggest reason that we have to intellectualize a non-intellectual process, because we have this, we have our soul purpose who's nudging us forward to discover our brilliance, our greatness, and contribute it in the world in a way that matters to us, and making, and so there's that, but then there's this, I refer to it as monkey mind, that survival mechanism that wants you to fit in and doesn't want anything to change and wants you to play it safe. And those two things are happening subconsciously, and as they do, they can brew this perfect storm of confusion.
And people that love us a lot of times, it's their own fears of what might happen to us if we really embrace that, because their soul purpose is different than ours. So like, how could that be possible? How could you accomplish that? Well, maybe they can't, but maybe you can. And I think the miracle is like when we actually don't look at what we can or can't do based upon our soul purpose, but we bring others along because it's beyond our capability, but we inspire them with our vision, right? They go, and that's part of that clarity. When you're like really clear, that's going to breed confidence. That's going to breed like bringing people to say like, I want to be part of that. That's amazing, right? Like,
well, it's like your grandpa, right? That wanted you to get a real job and have, so you could make a good living, right?
Because his dad had to go get a job because his business wasn't working when he lived in Italy. And so there's like, ooh, I don't want you to go through that pain.
I want to protect you. And
but then proud of me when I didn't do that. Like, wait, you broke the cycle and you were okay. And I remember showing him my first really big amount of money in the bank account. And he was like, oh, wait, this is awesome. You'll be all right.
So we all have these parents and these people in our life that want to protect us and want us to stay playing it safe, that they're in their, survival instinct.
They just don't want to see you hurt. They love you, and it's they're unintentional. They're not recognizing that it might be like just against everything that you are, because they just don't want to see you hurt.
And so for that reason, that's where the clarity can be aloof. And, so it's not an intellectual process, but we have to intellectualize it a bit so that we can have, because there's two things that make things clear. You have an image and words. Those make things clear. Without that, that soul purpose and monkey mind going on inside can, like one of monkey mind's, I think, favorite tactics is, I don't know what I really want. I don't know.
I don't know, like that's my son's favorite thing when he doesn't want to deal with something.
Like
just immediate before he's even thought about it. I don't know.
Yep.
I'm like, oh, well, what if you did know?
What
would that look like?
I play a game with my clients, like I says, for laser coaching, so we can really get, let's play this game of no saying I don't know, right? And I know it's real. Like when I'm doing deep work with my coach, it comes up for me, it feels real, but I know that that's like, oh, now it's kind of this, oh, I'm just on the precipice of seeing something really big for myself. Let me just hold looking and see.
I just wrote an article in Forbes that was about the 5 things people say that keep them broke, and I don't know was one of them. But see, there's 2 sides to I don't know. There's like, I don't know, anything's possible, like just being open, but then there's I don't know. So I'm not willing to look at it. I'm shutting it down, right? There's like 2 different contexts. But I do think this is an important topic, like that we don't just go, oh, I know my soul purpose. One, I feel like my soul purpose, I continue to like climb the mountain and see more possibility as I start to recognize capabilities. What I thought was a big vision, I go, wait, that was just what I knew how to accomplish. Now my vision is, I don't know how to accomplish it, but I want to inspire people to come along, and I might look back 5 years from now and be like, oh, that was even smaller, right?
Most people create their vision not on what they really want, but what they think they can get.
And what they have, right? Like what resources they currently have.
So I think I can get this, so I'll go ahead and dream
I call that a goal. A goal you feel like you have the capability to accomplish. A vision is beyond your reach.
And as a matter of fact, for people watching, one of the best ways to really get inside your soul purpose, to really see what it is, because the framework that we use to intellectualize it is that it's who you really are, and what it is, the impact that you really want to make, so what it is you're really doing without any limitations of survival instincts or monkey mind. And so, a lot of times with clients, I'll say, hey, I'm going to give you this magic wand for the next 3 years. You can use it in any way you want. What's your life like? Tell me about it. And I always have them tell from present tense and step right into it, and they can really feel.
My favorite is when I'm like, hey, if you just had this unlimited checking account, and every time you wrote a check, money just kept appearing, what would you do in life? And a lot of people get really like, well, I think I would buy more real estate. Well, do you love buying real estate? Well, I don't know, but I just think, I'm like, well, dude, like, the real estate is just like a conduit. Is that really what you want to do? For some, the answer would be yes. They love that process. For others, it'd be like, well, I was just doing that for money.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So the second distinction, so the first distinction is clarity. The second one is alignment. And that's a really big piece too, because if you are not aligning your sole purpose with best business and best financial practices, then you are most likely going to take that route to bankruptcy and destruction.
Right, because that's the lie of abundance called ignorance, right? Oh, I'm just thinking positively. Well, positive thinking can still make you go broke.
Yes.
You know,
that's what it did for me.
Right. So
I was the most positive broke person
there's that difference.
Ever. Yes. Yeah.
Abundance versus ignorance. Ignorance is I don't understand business. I don't understand my finances, but it's all going to work out for me.
Yes.
Well, probably not.
Yeah. I mean, I was shocked, Garrett, just recently. I was in a community of high-performing coaches, all 6- and 7-figure coaches. And when the question was posed to the community, how many of you worry and stress about money and would love to handle your money issues forever, my jaw about dropped when most people raised their hand. And I mean, it was probably the first time in my life I felt like, wow, I really got this handled because of what we teach here at Wealth Factory.
Right.
Most people don't have a guiding philosophy with money and structure and processes and a plan to be with it regularly. And I think that's one of, you got to have that structure piece.
But money is lifestyle. It's not something that we get a choice to figure out or not. I guess if we don't figure it out, it's going to be a consistent stressor.
Yeah.
We're going to hit cash flow crunches.
Yeah.
We're not going to monetize the very gifts that we have. And ultimately, that's going to be like this slowing everything down in the background forever.
Yeah.
Or we start to master it. And the good news about mastering it doesn't mean you have to know everything about money. It's just you need to know the things that are important, and then you eliminate the things that aren't. So if you don't want to invest in tax liens, you never need to know about them. If you don't want to learn about commercial paper or options, or you just need to figure out what is it that you can focus on that's based upon your investor DNA. And ultimately, I think the best investment is investment in discovering your sole purpose and building a life that you love, in designing a day that makes sense for you to do the things that you're most contributory to the world in a way that actually monetizes. So even when I wrote the book with Nick Halleck, 5-Day Weekend, the whole notion was you still have 2 days where you're maintaining and monitoring and managing everything that might even be a little bit of minutia. It might even be some of the details that you're like, I hate dealing with this.
Yeah.
But then you have 5 days that you're free to create. You're free to really do the things. So if we neglect those things, they come back to haunt us. If we address them, then I think that there's a lot more that we can embrace. So look, this is Win Then Play Money Matters. I've got Demi with me, and she is brilliant at understanding and uncovering soul purpose in a practical way. Not in this way that we just say, do whatever you love and think positively and everything will work out, but saying, how do we take the best of who you are and make sure that matches up to the way that you have better finances, better money, and really, how can you profit up front from the ideas you have and build the life that you love? That's what we're uncovering, investigating, and committed to. So, build the life you love and create a legacy that lasts.